This week on DineDrinkCLE, the podcast.
Paloma has been in the Van Aken district, not in the market hall, but in a separate building. It's been there for 2 years, but it was closed for a week so it could get a rebranding. Instead of staying with a more casual Tex-Mex, they've gone to fine dining with a northern Mexico, southern Texas.
Ain't nothing wrong with the strawberry margarita with the fancy steak.
Okay, all right, and on to the next.
The pumpkin and pumpkin spice trend across all foods is a little played out. And in order for something to land really well, I can see you're already like you're coming in.
I'm gonna let
you're coming in hot. I knew it.
But it is, yes. Chef's Garden is one of, I think, my favorites, just because everything they do there is so cool. It's not just like, okay, yeah, you can buy like carrots and turnips and stuff like that, but then they have like
I'm Josh Duke.
And I'm Alex Darus.
And you're either watching or listening to DineDrinkCLE, the podcast, where each and every week we're joined by cleveland.com's best and brightest food experts, insiders, and influencers talking all things food and drink here in the Northeast Ohio area. What are we talking about today, Alex?
Yes, it's fall season still, as we're kind of going into the beginning of fall season. So we're going to talk about farmers markets, all those great places to buy pumpkins and apples. We're going to talk pumpkin beer a little bit later, and we have a few new restaurants to discuss as well. Oh, and I judged a meatball crawl, so that was pretty exciting. So full docket today on the DineDrinkCLE podcast.
Gotcha. Yeah, of course, we're going to start with keeping it nice and fresh with those farmers markets, and we got Paris Wolfe here to talk to us about that. Welcome, Paris.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Alex.
Hi. So you recently wrote a story about kind of the farmers markets that people should check out in Northeast Ohio. I guess to start though, what is like a farmer's market versus like a farm market versus like a farm stand?
Okay. Farmers markets are the communal spaces that are public where a lot of farmers gather, a lot of makers, farmers, growers gather and sell their products individually at stands, at tables in each place. A farm market is on the farm usually, and it's farm fresh produce, seasonal, that used to just be grown by the local farm, but now they're starting to collect products from a number of other makers and farms. And then a farm stand is usually along the road in front of somebody's house where they're growing things and they have extra.
So you highlighted farm markets in
Yes.
your story. So you had quite a few. I know you and I have visited a couple of them throughout the year, but what was kind of your highlights, or how did you kind of select the ones that you ended up with?
I tried to hit a wide area and geographically, and picked 18 that were readily apparent. I had pictures of, I believe, almost all of them. Most of them have both vegetables and fruit. Often you used to find you could pick apples somewhere and they would only have apples. Now, several of them have farm festivals, fall festivals. So they have pumpkin mazes or corn mazes, pumpkin painting, toy tractors to ride, all kinds of things for families.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's not so tapped into the sort of farmers market vibe in the Northeast Ohio area, is it like special? Like, do we do it better? Is it something that we're uniquely known for? What's the impact here, like, as opposed to other places?
I think we do it better.
Okay.
I think if you were, and I've been in winter in California and Florida when they have more markets because it's not quite so hot, they have more variety when it comes to more things that need hotter temperatures, okra, avocados, things like that. But here we have more apples, more stone fruit, a lot of that. Only during the season, though.
Yeah. And I was going to say, too, kind of to answer that question this week, also Travel and Leisure magazine picked Cleveland as one of the top 10 foodie destinations. And part of their kind of reasoning or why they picked Cleveland was because of the connection between like local chefs and the producers. So like, I think Ohio, it's Northeast Ohio specifically because of factors like space and price and things like that. It's almost like easier to be farm to table here because there's not as high of a economic barrier sometimes. I mean, I think,
and it's available. A lot of farmers deliver to the restaurants.
well, yeah, and it's like, I mean, all of these farms, like I know recently we went to Wholesome Valley Farm down in Amish country, which provides all the almost everything for Ohio City Provisions, which is kind of cool to go to a place like Ohio City Provisions that's literally in the city. It's bustling. You pay a meter street parking, but it is a farm market. Like everything they get there, from the meat to the, I think
all the vegetables, the fruit,
the baked goods, everything they make
it's
there.
all made locally or sourced locally. All the meat comes from Wholesome Valley. Wholesome Valley pulls together the eggs and the dairy. They provide a lot of the bakery that they make right on the farm.
Yeah, so it's just kind of cool to have, like, I mean, I know too, a lot of the farms on your list, they are kind of in more rural areas or not really in the city, but it's like 20 minutes away from down. Where else do you get that kind of experience, you know?
And you can get it in an urban environment. Sometimes it's worth driving out. Like we went to Chef's Garden in
Huron.
Early in the summer.
Yeah.
And they have so many varieties and heirloom and heritage varieties of things.
I think I took a picture of Paris and I each had shopping carts and they were like, oh. But it is, yes. Chef's Garden is one of, I think, my favorites just because everything they do there is so cool. It's not just like, okay, yeah, you can buy like carrots and turnips and stuff like that, but then they have like the, what do they call it? Like the marinated root vegetable slices.
Oh, yeah, vegetable slices that you can use on a sandwich instead of meat.
Yeah, they just do really like cool stuff there too.
Microgreens, carrots of every color,
edible
round
flowers,
carrots.
like everything. But
it's worth the destination. It's a destination. It's worth a field trip.
Yeah, and like you said before, I think you mentioned California or somewhere over there. They have a lot. Sorry, Florida, where there's a lot of farmers markets and events and festivals. I gotta imagine we do it uniquely. I mean, we've got sort of a colder fall up here than down there. So I don't imagine they experience fall foliage like we do. For example, the hay rides, the events, all of that stuff has to be a little bit cooler up here, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I think the timing of your story like really makes sense because it is this time of the year with the foliage and the hay rides and stuff. People want to go to the farms. But I think it's also important that like you can and should be shopping at these places all year round because it's like, that's how you buy what's in season. You buy the freshest produce. What else?
Keep the money in the community.
Yes.
You get things when they're ripe instead of being picked unripe and then shipped across the country to market.
Well, and then something that we learned a lot at the Chef's Garden is like the nutritional value. Sometimes these mass market produce can kind of end up having, when tested, less
lower nutritional value because the soil is depleted. Whereas here, there are different farming practices, smaller farms.
Organic.
It's done differently.
Yeah. And like, too, I think something I'm working on a story about microgreens right now. And they were saying like a lot of, for more full grown fruits and vegetables, we tend to overwater because we like them to look really pretty. Because if you water a plant a lot, it looks really pretty. But then a lot of times that water ends up kind of taking like
it's in the
plant. Yeah, it's less nutrients because it's diluted. So as like in a microgreen, you get the same amount as a full head of broccoli and 2 little leaves, but it's like even from the local farmers who focus on just growing things that taste good and growing what's in season and not making sure everything's got to be beautiful to put on Giant Eagle shelves. It's like you are getting a health benefit from it.
And if you're talking about the watering, if you're going to go picking peaches, strawberries, raspberries are still in season in some places now. Pick them before the rain, not after the rain, because they're like little sponges. And they're going to have more flavor if you pick them after it's been dry for a little while.
Yeah, I would have never even thought about the whole like sort of watering situation, how that might dilute nutrients, but like totally maps
that's
on
why
the
all of our strawberries at the grocery store are this big and they taste like nothing. But if you go to a farmer's market and you get the little ones, they taste better, but they also are much more nutritious.
You learn something new every day. But yeah, that actually makes so much sense. It's like wow.
Yeah. And now we're rejoined by Paris Wolfe, who's going to talk a little bit about 2 new restaurants in Greater Cleveland. First up is Paloma in Shaker Heights. So it's not really new, right?
No, Paloma has been in the Van Aken district, not in the Market Hall, but in a separate building. It's been there for 2 years, but it was closed for a week so it could get a rebranding. Instead of staying with a more casual Tex-Mex, they've gone to fine dining with a Northern Mexico, Southern Texas brand.
Okay, so now it's a little more steakhouse, upscale vibe.
Yes.
Too, and menu. I think
Yes.
your story said like 75% of the menu changed.
Yeah, 75% of the menu is new.
But they kept
They kept some of the accompaniments, the side dishes, and the appetizers, like the shrimp ceviche, and then like the corn salad that they serve as a side dish. They kept some of that.
yeah.
And what sort of brought about this change?
Well, Alyssa Ladner and Zach Ladner, a married couple who are partners in the restaurant with Carl Quagliata. Alyssa has a lot of fine dining experience. Alyssa and Zach both worked at Giovanni's, where they had a lot of fine dining experience. And they wanted to introduce some fine dining components to the restaurant. And then they realized it wasn't really on brand. So if they wanted to make change, they needed to make wholesale change.
Yeah.
So they kind of went with the steakhouse, I think, because Zach they're part owners in the Village Butcher in Mayfield. So they have access to some of the best meat around. And Zach is a butcher who cuts it from the primals down to the steak cuts.
Yeah. No, so it's not just your average. It's not that they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. It sounds like they're
They're thoughtfully curating the entire restaurant. Yes.
Yeah. And what were some of... So it sounds like a lot of steaks. I think I saw on the menu something like escargot with bone marrow.
Yes. There is a
So
lot
that's not really Mexican
No,
Tex-Mex.
I think they stayed with some fine dining, some Tex-Mex. I think, I know that some of the Mexican influences came from Zach growing up in Southern Texas and his grandfather being a rancher. So he has exposure to, again, a lot of meat and a lot of Mexican influences in food. I do think there are some items on the menu that are not really Mexican, but they're more upscale. But there's a lot of, like, there's 5 guacamole dishes you can get. You can get traditional or 4 different versions of it.
Yeah, I think I saw like a lobster salad guacamole or something like that. But so a lot of shared plates, prime cuts of meat, kind of totally different. It's cool to see too with I'm not no hate to literally the next restaurant we're going to talk to, but a lot of these fine dinings, they end up being like, okay, your classic American steakhouse or a French bistro. So it's kind of cool to see fine dining with these other cultural cuisines too.
And what are they doing in the drink space?
They're doing craft cocktails. They do have your margarita, your Paloma. They have some craft cocktails. I had a mezcal cocktail, a gladiolus that was made with falernum and just a number of different things that I never would have thought about putting together. And it was really good.
So it's not your classic like flavored margaritas.
No.
So
No.
very upscale.
No.
Yeah. Well,
Nothing wrong with a flavored margarita, though.
no, but it's time and place. If I'm going to eat an upscale tomahawk steak with what else? What do you have in the steak? Do they have like accoutrements for the steak?
They have smoked tallow, roasted garlic, roasted jalapenos, and lime with their steaks.
Oh, that sounds really
And then you
good.
can get one of many sides to go with.
Ain't nothing wrong with the strawberry margarita with the fancy steak.
Okay, all right, and on to the next. So you also recently went, Paris, to La Ville Lumière on
I did.
Clifton Avenue in Cleveland, technically? Or
Yes, it's technically in Cleveland. It opened last Monday. It is a French brasserie. It's elevated, fine dining, has white tablecloths, but it's still very comfortable.
Yes, I was looking at the menu and I really want to eat there because they have some seafood towers, like deviled eggs with caviar, brunch and dinner kind of thing. Who opened this restaurant? Are they new?
Kevin O'Connell, he is from Buffalo originally, lived in LA for a long time, has been exposed to some very high-end restaurants. New York City, been around a lot of people. He was influenced to come back here, interestingly, by Rocco Whalen, who is a friend of his. And Rocco told him what a great food city Cleveland is. So Kevin had some sandwich businesses for about 3 years and got to know the city before he jumped into this venture.
Oh, cool. So it's his first brick and mortar in Cleveland.
I think he had a brick and mortar sandwich shop, but this is his first real
full
restaurant.
service. Yeah. And so what was kind of his inspiration for the cuisine? Like, why traditional French?
He likes French food. He thought that it was missing in the Cleveland scene. He thought that the area in right there off of Clifton on the way out of the city towards Lakewood, there's a lot of traffic and it would be a good place. It's in the old
the Martini Bar.
Yeah, on Clifton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget the actual name of it.
I
but
know,
everyone calls
I
it
know.
the Martini Bar.
It's been empty for a while, and he actually took over the lease in March. They tore out everything. Like the new tile floor that looks very French, looks like it's in it from an old Parisian cafe, but it's really brand new. They just put it in, and it looks great.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And to kind of go off Josh's last question, what are the cocktails? What's the drinks like?
The cocktails are classic.
Okay.
Negronis, Sazeracs, Manhattans, all very classic cocktails, not a craft program. They have a wine list that they've curated that is mostly 90% French.
Yeah.
As you might expect.
Yeah. But it's kind of 50-50 with cocktails and wine. Or are they trying to be more wine, do you think? Or
Kevin said that they're working on their wine list, but he bought out a private collection, and he has a number of first growths on his private collection. You don't see that on his wine list. You have to ask for the specialty list. And he's selling some of that for less than $1,000, which if you're a real wine collector, that's a good deal. Not for a reporter, but
if you are in the market, ask for the special list of La Ville Lumière, which I think means City of Light, which is Paris.
Ooh, I love that.
And Cleveland.
And Cleveland, yes, I saw because Public Square, I'm going to get my
had the first traffic light in the United States.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So they say Cleveland's a city of light, Paris is a city of light.
That's cute.
Basically the same thing. If you look at the Cleveland skyline, you wouldn't even know the difference between it and Paris.
I don't know about all that.
So,
if you ate the menu, you wouldn't know the difference. Actually,
that's probably a
I
better
saw him
answer.
sending out a La Croque Madame, and it was better than one I had in France.
Those
It
are my
looked better.
favorite. That's like the bougie ham and cheese.
Go order it. It looked beautiful. I did not try it. It
one
looked
other
beautiful.
thing I saw they have on their menu for brunch is like a smoked salmon bagel tower. So like it's like a bagels. They'll do the smoked salmon, all the accoutrements, and you like do the. I just want to go there and like.
Is that like a shareable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Unless you want to eat 5 bagels.
One thing to know is they are open from 11 to midnight, Monday through Saturday.
Is the kitchen open till midnight?
Yes. And they're doing that so people in the hospitality industry, when they close up at 10, they can still go dine out.
Or me.
When you're done partying elsewhere, instead of going to Taco Bell,
I was going to say, when I'm working too hard during the day and then it's like 9 p.m. and I'm like, I need to eat dinner. Paris. No, it sounds really good. And especially that area too, it's like, we have a lot of stuff going on over there, but not necessarily restaurants. Like we have Landmark and Twist and Diner Bar, but nothing like this on that little street.
Right.
So.
I think it's going to be a welcome addition.
Yeah, and it sounds like the level of excellence in terms of French cuisine is not really something you can find very, very easily across the whole greater Cleveland area, unless is there anything like that?
I think there's a few French places. La Albatross in University Heights.
French, no, I think that's technically Cleveland. It's University Circle.
Or University Circle.
Cleveland.
No, that's what I meant.
Okay.
The Heights in Cleveland screw me up a lot.
I know.
That is like a traditional French restaurant, Le Petit Triangle in Ohio City, but that's a little bit more cafe. I think as far as, especially in this area, not a lot of like traditional French. Brasserie.
No, I can't say it either.
French is like my worst language. I can't do it. But yeah, very exciting.
So, Alex, you just had a good time being a judge in a meatball crawl in Little Italy. So, tell us about that.
Yes, the Taste in Little Italy Meatball Crawl. It's a fundraiser for the Cleveland Montessori and Alta House school in the neighborhood. They did their third meatball crawl. Don't correct me on that. But this weekend on Sunday, and it was so fun. Basically, you walk up in Little Italy, you get like a lanyard with a bunch of little tickets in it, and you can go to, I think it was over 25 places for drinks. It's a wine crawl too.
Okay.
For drinks and food, I think about 15 of them had specifically meatballs. Some of the places like Three Roses Winery, they were doing wine and lobster bisque with shrimp tempura kind of on it. It was
Wait, hold on. Pause, rewind. Lobster bisque wine? Is that
No,
what you said?
no,
a pairing.
with
Okay.
a
Okay.
pairing.
I'm like, what the heck? Okay, go ahead.
Jesus. No, so they didn't really do like the meatball of it, but you still had great bites everywhere. I think, what's the one? There's a market, everyone will know it. The one in Little Italy, the market that I can't think of. They were making fresh pizzelles, like warm. They were so good. But there was a lot of good meatballs this year. It was really hard. I had to judge based on like appearance, texture, and flavor. So there was a lot of criteria.
Okay, so what were some of the standouts for you, if you can recall?
Definitely my favorite was from Mia Bella. Mia Bella is always delicious in Little Italy, but they had like a creamy truffle Parmesan meatball. So it was like truffle flavor, but it wasn't overdoing it.
Okay.
And they had it with like this ravioli that was really good. Where else did I eat?
That sounds good.
Borgata bar, which is kind of like the Little Italy dive bar. I've never had a meatball like this. It was like steak rolled up. It was like baked. Basically, when you ate it, it was like a piece of steak, like tender steak, but it was a ball, like a meatball. It didn't like unravel.
Okay.
But it was not ground meat.
And it wasn't just a cut of steak.
No, it was like baked steak. I don't know how they did it. I think they won in 2023, the Borgata bar. It was my favorite until literally at the end when I had the Mia Bella one, and I was like, oh, this is really
interesting.
I had, now I can't remember. I think it was Toli. One of the places had a spaghetti stuffed meatball. So it was a meatball with spaghetti inside.
That sounds good.
That was crazy.
Oh my gosh. So like were the noodles like hanging out of the meatball?
No, I didn't even know that because like that was one of the first places I went. It was really busy. I just like grabbed my meatball and walked away. I'm like, what is in this? And then I cut it and there was spaghetti inside.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how.
Nice little surprise.
How you would do that.
Like, what if you didn't even know? You'd be like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, I guess it's like meatball crawl.
Yeah.
You know what you sign up for. But yeah. And then a couple of my favorites were from Presti's and then Home Bistro. They were kind of just two classic meatballs you could eat in sauce. The Presti's one, I feel like it was definitely not just beef. Like it was really savory, like almost like a veal or something in it. I don't know what they put in it, but all the meatballs were different. And it was just a cool event. Like you walked around with it was raining. It was before the Browns game. Like a lot of people there in their Browns gear, but it really was a different way to experience Little Italy than the feast because it was still busy, but not as busy. But it was like, I mean, so many businesses participated too, not even just restaurants. Like any business was like pouring wine or Mount Granita Italian Ice. They were giving out Italian Ice sample, like with your ticket and stuff. And it was just a really cool event, especially like for the school. And I think you hear meatball crawl and it's like, how can that not be fun? So
yeah, for sure. And I'm guessing there were no like outside restaurants or organizations that came in and like made a stand or were there?
No, I think it was all technically with the Taste in Little Italy and the Little Italy like Business Bureau, whatever it's officially called. But yeah, so they were all on Murray Hill and the other street, those two streets in Little Italy. I'm really being very specific in this episode. But yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you. What do you think makes a good meatball as opposed to a bad? Like what is a common, I guess, bad way or I don't know, a bad meatball experience that you have?
Okay.
Because I'm sure there were some that were maybe misses.
Yeah, a few of them were just like, dang, I wish this had like more seasoning, like salt. I think a lack of salt, especially when you're doing a meatball crawl. I think, okay, so when you're making like spaghetti and meatballs, you salt your pasta water. So the pasta always has like a little bit of salt in it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're just eating the meatball, it's like you have to compensate with seasoning it. And I think, and sometimes, I don't know too. It was like hard because there were like big meatballs, like good sized meatballs. And I was like, this is perfect, like perfect meatball. And then I would get a couple like mini meatballs that were like almost SpaghettiO size.
Dang, that's
like,
real small.
Yeah, but I was like, I like this now too. You know, it's like, I think seasoning is a big part, like layering the seasoning, making sure everything's really well mixed. I think people can try like any way, a million different ways, but you're gonna have to hand mix a meatball to like get it in there. You know what I mean? And so that can be hit or miss. And just if it's dry, too much breadcrumbs or something like that. And now we're joined by Pete Chakerian. Hi, Pete.
Hi, friends. What's up?
So pumpkin beer. It's pumpkin beer season. You recently wrote a classic CLE column about Franklin Castle by Market Garden.
I did.
What is your overall pumpkin beer opinion?
Well, I think I mentioned in the column at the very beginning that the pumpkin and pumpkin spice trend across all foods is a little played out. And in order for something to land really well, I can see you're already like you're coming in.
I'm gonna let
you're coming in hot. I knew it. It is a bit played out, but having said that, that has allowed for the Cleveland beer scene to kind of settle out of trying to make a thing of it, and so. Ultimately, that left Market Garden Brewery with a great opportunity to refine what they sell as Franklin Castle Pumpkin Ale, and it is delicious. It's nuanced, it's very balanced, and it has just enough spice and enough sweet that you get what they're going for without getting clobbered over the head. It's not a pumpkin spice latte. Sorry, Starbucks, but it's definitely not that. It's not super cloying. It's not overly spicy. It's just perfect, and it's perfect for a fall day. And it drinks really smooth and clean too, because it's a 7%, so it'll catch up with you, but you don't know as you're enjoying it. It doesn't have that sort of, alcoholic bite at the end to let you know that maybe you're going over.
Yeah, I think it must be the style, because I noticed just kind of looking, a lot of the local pumpkin beers tend to be higher alcohol. Even like just a lot of them tend to be imperials, like Fathead's Spooky Tooth is 9%, Saucy Brewworks Boo Thing is 8.5%, and then Sibling Revelry Bashing Pumpkins is 9.2%. So they're all kind of high too. And I wonder why it's like, oh, spooky. It's so scary how high of alcohol this beer is.
It's true. And from that perspective, that puts Franklin Castle kind of on the low end of the alcohol side of things. That ABV can catch up with you really fast. Those beers, I think, tend to be enjoyed, in your snifter style. You're going to have one or two of them. You're going to kind of nurse it. But you're right. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. And
sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I get it. Maybe you're over pumpkin spice, but I think the rest of us are still very much obsessed.
Okay, my thing is,
I don't know.
No.
I think the rest of us are very much.
The problem is, it's pumpkin spice. There's no pumpkin in it. Mostly, it's usually just the spices.
It's true.
I like a pumpkin spice latte that has actual pumpkin in it, or like these beers. I think. One of the ones that I saw, Immigrant Son does like a Gordians. I think that actually has pumpkin in it. Like certain ones actually have pumpkin in it, but pumpkin spice itself, it's like, okay, just like I'm over it.
I think it just pairs well with anything like mapley sweet. It's very fall. It just gives you the fall feeling. I don't know if it's just something that we've been sort of conditioned to like and associate with fall, and I don't know, like the warmness of the season, I guess.
What is a pumpkin spice food, the weirdest one that you've eaten?
Weirdest?
Yeah, have you eaten like a Twinkie or something?
I'd have to think. You know what? I don't know how to you know the Swiss rolls, like the strawberry shortcake Swiss rolls? I feel like there's a pumpkin one that I had one year, and that was really weird.
I think you're right about that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I remember I had a pumpkin pie Pop-Tart once. That was, thank God.
No, that's a no bueno on that one.
Thank God you didn't have to rate that one.
We didn't have to do that a couple months ago when we did the Pop-Tarts ratings. I thankfully got to avoid that.
Yeah, but I think in general, like, pumpkin spice is overdone in a lot of things. But, like, with the beers, I can get it. It's like a Christmas ale. Like, I can't drink them, like, every weekend of the fall, you know what I mean? Like, but I get it.
No, and to that point, the other breweries that you mentioned, and I would say I just had Land Grants too, which was also quite good, a little different certainly, but quite good. The ones that are higher in alcohol content, I sort of steer away from automatically because you can't really they're not a session beer. I mean, you start sessioning those things, you're going to be, sleeping in a pile of leaves in short order. So,
that
actually sounds kind of fun.
Great way to spend a fall Saturday.
Yeah, I knew you would say that somehow. But I do think that, like, by and large, the pumpkin spice thing as a trend overall, not specific to beers, is probably a little overdone.
Yeah. And one thing I was going to say too is some of these beers or local breweries are combining the pumpkin beer with the pumpkin spice latte coffee thing. So Masthead Brewing Company literally calls their beer a pumpkin spice latte ale. And Royal Docks has Pumpkin Slayer, which is a pumpkin beer, but it's also brewed with coffee. So it's kind of interesting to see them bring, like, because a lot of these breweries, they do make like coffee beers or something like that, but combining it with the pumpkin is cool.
I think the creativity surrounding them is definitely good.
Yeah.
But from that standpoint, any style of beer that's being done, in the greater Cleveland area, when I do a classic CLE Eats on a specific beer, I think I see it as sort of rising above kind of the fray of everything to really stand out. And so that, to me, is why I sort of picked the Franklin Castle.
For sure.
It's definitely like I think it's like the gold standard for what's going on the pumpkin beer side of things. And I know I'm going to get people that yell about Spooky Tooth. I love Spooky Tooth, but again, that's one of those where it's like a one and done kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So
no, I agree. And I think with Franklin Castle too, it's like, oh, they don't have this like kitschy Halloween name. It's like, it's such a Cleveland, if you know thing. Like it's our pumpkin beer.
I agree 100%.
But it also is like, so I just did a story about local coffee shops doing fall drinks that aren't like pumpkin spice lattes. And there's a lot of like apple crisp, maple this. Like, why don't we see that in beer?
That's a good question. I do think that in some cases we're seeing that in cider, but that's the kind of thing that, I doesn't get much attention paid to it in the Cleveland market necessarily. It's more of a national sort of thing. There's some great northeastern cider companies that are bringing out a lot of things like that, a spiced apple, fall, autumn sort of feel.
But like, think of like a sour fruit beer, but apple. Like you have fruit beers of every other flavor. Why wouldn't they just put apple in it?
I don't know. That's a good
question.
I'm
asking you, the leader of the Cleveland craft breweries.
The truth of the matter is, somebody's probably on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that the way that the creativity of the Cleveland beer scene is, somebody's working on something like that to sort of expand on like that fall market. People want to experience something different.
Yeah. Since we're getting off the rails a little bit, I'd like to keep us going off the rails. So when we're talking
over the cliff,
yeah,
that's exactly how this
all
goes.
the way. That's what I'm here for. But no, somebody said something about coffee and pumpkin spice lattes, and I'm just thinking, like, is there a pumpkin spice latte martini, kind of like an espresso martini?
Yes, I have seen those before. I don't know where, but I have seen them.
That sounds so good now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway.
Yeah. No, that would be kind of good.
Yeah.
Well, you know what you could do is you could make an espresso martini, but use Southern Tier's, what's that called? Pumpkin whiskey.
Okay.
Instead of vodka, and then just use the ingredients, and then you would have.
You think it would give the pumpkin spice latte?
It's pretty pumpkin-y.
Okay.
But you probably want I like a real espresso martini that looks like espresso.
I do too.
Okay, you don't want it creamy and orange?
No, well, I mean, yes, if it's a pumpkin.
No, exactly.
If it's pumpkin, yes, it has to. Yes.
Ugh.
It has to be. It has to be creamy and orange, or like maybe white. I could go with a white.
No,
A whitish
that's
kind of
disgusting.
texture.
That's the second time I've gagged on the mic today. That's
Oh, jeez.
sorry. 'Cause, that makes me think though. We got to start thinking spooky cocktails. We got to go find some spooky cocktails again. I know last year you I feel like you found a few.
Yes, for sure. Yep, 100% on it.
Yeah.
On it. Yep.
Well, so do you think, being that you are a pumpkin spice defender
Okay.
and a notorious not beer drinker,
Mhm.
pumpkin beer would do it for you?
I would just say, I'll put it like this. I think it's above Christmas ale for sure.
Wow.
No question about that. Yeah.
You don't like Christmas ale?
It's an experience at the right time and right place, like a Christmas holiday party, like one and done. Yes. But outside of that, no, it's not my favorite.
That just makes okay. So it's a go off the rails. You can get kegs of Christmas ale. It's a horrible idea to do that because you feel horrific after.
Uh-huh.
But I wonder, they should make kegs of Franklin Castle. I'd buy it for a Halloween party.
I could see a 6-barrel coming out of there. I don't know. Let's call him and ask.
Yeah.
What do you think, guys?
Come on. Please, I'm hosting a Halloween party this year. I'll buy one. But no, that's but so many pumpkin beers to try.
Mhm.
Franklin Castle, I think, is always a reliable, but we'll have to see if any of the breweries will try to do anything different. Take my ideas for other flavors.
You're going to be like R&D, like free research and development for all the breweries.
We've given tons of ideas on this podcast.
That's true.
Might as well.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening to or watching DineDrinkCLE the podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at DineDrinkCLE and subscribe to our newsletter at cleveland.com/newsletters.